So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will give 1 minute so that everyone gets connected. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. It's a pleasure to have you all here. So first of all, I wanted to start giving thanks to Mats and to Gerardo for joining us today. So the main agenda for today's webinar is first to provide an overview and talk about what the European Health Data Space is, which are the biggest problems and challenges that we are facing. Then we will present very briefly how to build the data space and how you can start using a data space for your own. And then we will finish with the experience from Hospital Sant Pau from the hand of Gerardo. So without further delay, I wanted to provide the stage to Mats. Mats is a health data strategy advisor at the European Health Institution for Innovation through Health Data. He has a very long experience in the area of using data for clinical research and for clinical trials. So it's a real pleasure to have you here today with us. So thank you very much, Mats, for joining. And yeah, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Gabriel. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you an overview about the European health data space. It's the biggest, with no comparison, the initiative when it comes to health data within the European Union. And the vision is very brave. It's modernizing healthcare and aims to facilitate the use of health data across member states and improve patient outcomes, and also, of course, to accelerate and facilitate medical research. The initiative began in 2022, and it's expected to be operational in some way during the late of this year. And it's big. It's expected to save 11 billion euros over the next decade, and it aspires very boldly to enable seamless health data exchange across Europe, and breaking down silos between the different regions and institutions. There is also an ambition to be able to share, connected and share more than 10% of all EHRs in Europe as part of the EHDS initiative. And it also, as I will go further into, to unlock the ability to reuse unstructured data, which has an enormous potential. So with that, next slide, please. There are, of course, challenges with such a brave and very important project. The estimation is that more than 80% of all health data is unstructured. So unstructured data utilization is very, very important for the project. And it's today, it is difficult to analyze and share, and advanced tools like artificial intelligence and natural language processing have today a very interesting and promising potential. But this requires standardized framework for effective implementation. The other challenge is interoperability. if we thinking about the different member states in EU and also about the different resources they have, the different maturity among the different healthcare systems, and not to mention the standards, creates sort of quite a challenge to seamless integration and interoperability. In this sense, the Observation Medical Outcomes Partnership, OMOP, and its data model offers an interesting interoperability strategy for making data available across borders, across system, and across institutional use. The third very important challenge is, of course, data privacy and ethics. If a European health data space is going to swing, it needs to be, of course, adhering to GDPR. But the problem here is that many regions lack sort of have their own interpretation of GDPR that sort of makes it also important to create sort of a union way how to interpret that. Infrastructure and digital literacy is another one that we are talking about, the actual infrastructure that resides at different member states, and also the skilled workforce that deals with problems and implementation. And of course, last but not least, stakeholder alignment. Needless to say, collaboration is absolutely key among the different stakeholders that needs to be in place. Next slide. Of course, there are fantastic opportunities with European health data space. And I think the time is very ripe. The time is here because the maturity and advancement of artificial intelligence and its various tools is make the integration of AI and NLP and standardized framework like OMOP fantastic opportunities to make this successful. So advanced machine learning and algorithms can help identify patients and trends from vast health data sets and unstructured data. NLP for unstructured data, needless to say, is a very important gearbox to make this happen. 15 years ago, this wouldn't be possible. It would be too strenuous, too time consuming. But now texts such doctor notes and radiology reports, and not mentioning the ability to reuse imaging, offers really, really important aspect of turning unstructured data into insights. OMOP for standardization is important. Adopting OMOP common data model can harmonize the data structures and make it possible to easily use it. Accelerating research is of course a fantastic opportunity for this that could speed up discovery, optimize clinical trials, enable real-time epidemiological monitoring, have tremendous opportunities to affect making treatments to patient diagnosis and so on and so forth, making a big difference. Next slide. So the path forward is to make this happen, in my view, is that it must to have very focused, coordinated approaches on adopting AI and NLP, and also emphasizing the standardization of initiatives. Another thing is patient-centric approach, ensuring transparency and with patients and all the other stakeholders is extremely important in this sense, because we are talking about sharing data on a scale that we haven't seen before. Investing in infrastructure, you can't drive the car if you don't have an engine. And public-private collaboration, the ability to initiate and actually drive and execute if collaboration between the different stakeholders. We are talking about vendors, we are talking about industry, we're talking about healthcare and data mediators is absolutely important to drive this innovation forward. Next slide. So to conclude, the European health data space is a fantastic initiative, and because it can actually offers transformative opportunity that, I mean, it's easy to say, but I think it's appropriate to say it can definitely transform healthcare and making healthcare really data-driven. And the potential is fantastic. But the challenges like interoperability, privacy and infrastructure, and leveraging technologies like AI and NLP and standardization models is very, very important. This could accelerate the innovation, improve public health, and enable equitable personal care. Success depends on collaboration between the different stakeholders, vendors, and so on and so forth, to share resources and drive effectively different implementation projects forward. With this, I think that EHS can improve outcomes and position Europe as a leader in health innovation. So with that, I would like to hand over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Mats. So this is a very exciting opportunity, in fact, the European health data space, and I think that all the challenges that we are trying to overcome, they have been challenges that have been in the industry for a very long time. So let me share with you how at IOMED we are trying to help on exactly this problem. So I'm Gabi, I'm one of the co-founders here at IOMED. And I think that it's very interesting to first try to understand how the health European data space is providing like its own naming to the stakeholders that we have been in the market for a long time. But it's providing a nomenclature, and it's also providing some rules on how we can really start working and start leveraging all the data that we are generating in the daily in the hospitals. So the European health data space refers to the patients as data subjects. As we always know, not everyone that is part of the system might be a patient by themselves. So it's referring as them as data subjects. Then we have all the institutions and entities like hospitals, primary care centers that are managing the data by themselves. The European health data space refers to those as data holders. And at the bottom, everyone that has the need really to use the data from healthcare to be able to perform their own research, to perform a better policy making, to be able to develop new ventures and new ideas. Like, for example, there's a company developing digital biomarkers or these kind of initiatives. At the end, these people need the data that is collected daily in the hospitals to be able to take over and be able to deliver their initiatives. So for that, the figure that it's been generated by the European health data space is this idea of data space mediators that we at IOMED are positioning ourselves as this figure. At the end, what we are trying to do as data space mediators is help the data holders to be able to provide good governance on the data requests that are coming from the data users. And we are trying to make the collaborative effort of sharing data in a compliant and an anonymous way much easier for data holders, but also making it much easier for the data users that if they need the data coming from multiple hospitals, multiple data holders at the same time, they can perform their request once and then work together with the hospitals to be able to access to already standardized and harmonized data without having to go through many different processes every time with each hospital. So at IOMED, what we have been building these years is all the infrastructure and technology to be able to deliver that. So at the end, our data space platform is focused on being able to facilitate that any request coming from the data users can be then approved and delivered, being compliant with the actual GDPR framework and with the EHDS framework, and promote the collaboration between these different stakeholders to really start becoming a new key star about how we manage data in Europe. Somehow, I think that the same way that the GDPR was part of these pioneer laws in data protection, I see the EHDS as a very nice way of really becoming one of the first places in the world, in Europe, where we can start having this share of data in a much easier way. So to start performing this European health data space and start having this European health data space in place, the first thing that we need is many small data spaces. So this is the first thing that we do, and we work with hospitals to build. So a data space at the end is nothing else that can be a database, can be a data warehouse, where the data holders themselves have managed to get most of the data from the different sources and systems coming from the hospital and build a system which is patient-centric and that can provide a full overview of what is happening to this patient through the different systems of the hospital, being those the EHR, the laboratory information systems, the pharmacy systems, so on and so on. Something that is very important, and as Matt mentioned, is the standards that are behind of these data spaces. And it seems like the OMOP was the biggest effort coming from the European Commission, where they betted very heavily on getting a lot of different hospitals all around Europe with more than 200 data partners through the Eden effort, which was a very big grant where leveraged the build of many data spaces around Europe. So that's the first part of generating a reality of the European health data space, to build a data space in each of those hospitals. To be able to do so, it's about getting the structured data of the hospital and making sure that for those very peculiar identification data points that we might find in the different systems, we are able to provide a standard codification, and that from the clinical notes, we are able to extract all the value from itself. So for that at Iomed, what we have developed is a tool that it's able to get the identification or the IDs for each of the different potential data points in each of the systems of the hospital, and then be able to automatically map it into the standard OMOP CDM codification, so that all the data between all the different hospitals, it's interoperable, and that all the data speaks exactly the same language, and it's independent of the underlying systems that are running on the hospital. The other part is being able to have natural language processing to be able to extract the value from the clinical narratives. For those of you that have been part of a clinical process lately, you know that the physicians, we have this very bad habit of writing a lot of notes, these big narratives about what is happening to the patients. And at the end, if we want to really able to understand what is happening to a patient, we need the glue between those different data points that have been generated in the information systems. And the glue, most of the time, can be found on the clinical notes, where we are telling this history, this cohesive timeline of what is happening to the patient and what is going to happen. So by having an AI that it's able to capture the most important data points from this text, we can start having a more complete visualization of what is happening to the patient. So with that, we have built half of the story, that it's having a data space in one hospital. Then we need to be able to really start sharing it between data holders and data users. So that's where we have built the mediation platform. The mediation platform, it helps the data holders to be able to position themselves as pioneers on clinical research and policy making, and it lets data users to very easily perform a request on the data that they are interested on, and if the data holder approves the use case, then to be able to execute the use case very, very fast, because all the data, it's already standardized, and all the data can be very easily anonymized and then be delivered to those data users that have requested for the data. So this process, it's an easy process to perform through the platform. You just perform one request to order the data that you might be interested on for your own project. So once you have generated the request of the data, you start setting and defining all the data of interest, so all the concepts or variables that you want to know about the population that it's of interest. So that way you can be very specific on the kind of use case you have. In the screen right now, what we are seeing is a data order that it has been performed through the mediation platform, where the researchers in this case, they are interested in being able to perform a study on the Alport syndrome. And what they want to be able is to understand much better how these patients have been analyzed and treated on these hospitals. So once the data order is defined, then we go into an approval stage. At this stage, whoever is the data user can select those hospitals that they are interested, that they want to start working with. And once they have decided which hospitals they want to work with, then the approval process starts, and it gets into the hospitals, so that the hospitals themselves can analyze if the primary outcome and the study and whatever they are interested in analyzing is of their interest, and they can confirm their interest, go through the ethics committee approvals, and go through all the contract signing procedures without having to be worried about having to go side by side, but rather being able to perform that through the platform itself. So finally, once the requests have been approved by the different data holders and the different ethics committees, with a process that Gerardo will share with us in a minute, then the delivery can be performed, and then the data can be accessed to be able to analyze it. And because this data it's already in a standard OMOP format, all the data tools that are open source and that are based on open science to be able to analyze this kind of data, then it can be used very easily to be able to perform and execute the primary outcome research that it wants to be done on this the mediation process. And in the end, the good thing about using open tooling is that there is a huge amount of very advanced analytical toolings coming from the Odyssey network that they can be leveraged to be able to execute the kind of a study that it's of interest for your own. At the end, what we are finding in this mediation platform is the capability of understanding through the catalog, the data that it's available, to be able to perform some quick feasibility tests to check if the kind of study that you want to perform is something that it can be done or not. You can perform these aggregated patient characterizations, where you can perform very advanced data analysis without having to have access to patient-level data. But if patient-level data is needed for your use case, you can even request that to the data holders through the platform. Or if you need to find patients that could be, for example, part of a clinical trial, or be able to access some advanced treatments like a CAR-T treatment, then you can use the patient finder. That at the end, what it will help is the physicians at the data holders to be able to understand what are the patients that fulfills some selection criteria, and go much faster in the recruitment process for the clinical trial, or in the operational clinical processes of the hospitals to be able to administer some treatments to these patients. So this is an overview of what we believe at IOMED that is going to be the materialization of the European health data space. This is how we are helping data holders and data users to really materialize these operations on the daily. And without further delay, I wanted to introduce you to Gerardo Ontiveros, He's an IT coordinator from the Hospital de Santa Creu i Sant Pau in Barcelona, and he's part of the Clinical Health Validation Center here in Sant Pau. So, Gerardo, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. First of all, thank you to IOMED for give me the opportunity to share with all the assistants what we have done in the last 4 years together, just to collaborate for promoting observational studies. The Hospital of São Paulo is a high complexity hospital. It's one of the 5 hospitals in Catalonia that is that are with a high complexity, and is located in Barcelona, and it has more than 600 years of history. Now we have in the 3rd location of the hospital, that is a building that it was built 10 years ago. With the last strategic plan, the hospital has committed to the digital health impulse. It has to. They want to boost all the innovatives of the digital health to adapt in the hospital, just to have a hospital in the future. For that reason, the hospital leads to initiatives that want to share with companies and technology. One of them is the Clinical Health Validation Center. That is a center that wants to regularize the relationship between companies and the hospital for the clinical validations of the technology in clinical trials or in observational studies for EI. And also, the hospital has restructured the ethical committee, adding some roles of technician bioengineers, just to facilitate the evaluation of this kind of technologies. Before this restructuration, every time that came to the clinical to the ethical committee, new technology, they were skeptical to, especially with AI. So the hospital has decided to include some roles of bioengineers and engineers in the committee. As you see, it's a big hospital. We have near 600 beds, more than 4,000 professionals, and we have more than 460K of outpatient consultation per year. Next slide, please, Gabriel. This is the roadmap that worked together with IOMED for having a OMOP database for harmonize and structure our clinical data into OMOP format. In 2021, the hospital and the research institute applied for a call of EDEN. That EDEN is a project and also a consortium to boost all the harmonization of data for observational studies, just to facilitate the multicentric studies. In 2022, we prepare all the ATLs, and we design and build all the ATLs just to transfer the data from the BI systems of the hospital in the EMR into OMOP. Here, IOMED transfer the data from the São Paulo structure to the custom São Paulo structure into OMOP. Then we pass all the approbation of the EDEN validation, and then San Pau becomes a full data partner member of the EDEN network. So now we have a validated OMOP database. In 2023, IOMED and the hospital signed a framework collaboration agreement for conducting observational studies. In this collaboration agreement, we set the basis of the relationship into the for the IOMED present as projects and studies from external promoters, and then we work together to explode the data and make a study and share the results. And then in 2024, the Hospital San Pau become a member of the EDEN Spanish node, just to relate with other hospitals and centers in Spain to facilitate the relationship. Next slide, please. In this slide, I want to share with you how is the data of the hospital. The data of the hospital, we have a population reference of more than 500,000 people that is located on the east side of Barcelona. And also we have more than 1,008 million patients in our systems, more than 30,000 of concerts in our catalogs, and we have structured in OMOP more than 20 years. We have structured all the background, and also the ETLs are configuring for a near online updating. Also, we have worked until now in 7 projects with IOMED. Next slide, please. First of all, when we have problems with ethical committee because they didn't know what it was OMOP and also the language, the natural language processes. Then we have to work in this with them, and we did some training and sessions, just seminars to share with them what it was, because the first projects, when they saw in the protocol in the committee sessions that it was OMOP, they didn't know it and they rejected it early. So we have to do a effort to give the knowledge in order to validate to evaluate those projects. Also, to make easier the relationship, we design a checklist of validation with IOMED. When IOMED present us a study with an external promoter, we have 5 points of checking. In the first one is the identification of the principal investigator. In some cases, the study comes with the PI, but in some cases they don't. So we facilitate with the chairman of the medical assistance for the research the identification of a lead investigator for the study, and also data availability, because in the study we have a big data set of clinical data in OMOP, but we don't have everything. For that reason, before an study is evaluated, we have to check if we have this data, and also if it's a structure or not a structure, just to know how we will proceed in the future. That is, we made this evaluation, and also if we have the data, we move forward. Also, we do a review of the protocol about the statistical subject, just to ensure that the statistical model is appropriate. Then also we check two aspects, the legal and ethical feasibility. And in some cases are related because the legal part is also included in the ethical committee. With the ethical feasibility, we have an appointment with the chairman of the ethical committee just to know if we have to change something in the protocol, or even we have to ask the consent, informed consent, or any need just to pass the ethical feasibility. Having this standard process facilitate the quick approval. What we showed in the 7 projects that we work together, after having this checklist, we have passed all of them, and easily, because all the aspects was treated before. Next slide, please. And also, we are working now with internal mediation, with internal projects in the hospital, not only with the IOMED that made the data structuring of the study, and also we want to do by our side with our data engineers. But IOMED is helping us to do that. What we're working now is for projects of digital validations and e-health studies. First of all, they support us in analysis of datability for the new observational studies, and also the identification of the potential participants for a clinical research for their requirement. Also, with OMOP, we can identify the number of cases and controls for observational clinical studies. Until now, we were working directly with the BI system of the hospital, but in the last months, we are starting to work with OMOP directly, and also it made easy if a study is multicentric. Also, IOMED is supporting us in the knowledge of the OMOP model. OMOP model has a lot of tables and a hierarchic structure that is not easy to know if you are not working every day. IOMED made us a transference of the OMOP model, and also some training with the database. And also, Odyssey provides to the data centers tools for data exploitation. That is one of them. Is the most common is Atlas. Atlas is quite complicated tool, and also we are defining with IOMED some cohorts for training, and also for identify the potential participant for one specific study. And also, the hospital nowadays has a lot of non-structured data, like clinical notes or clinical reports. With the technology of IOMED, we can also explode those kinds of data with the system that Gabriel explained before. For that reason, we have an extra working with the technology of IOMED and OMOP than working with a regular BI system of the hospital, because with the BI system of the hospital, we have only access to the structured data that it was on the different systems of the hospital. Well, this is the experience that we have with IOMED in the last 4 years. So it was a long journey before working for deploying an OMOP database, and now just working directly on observational studies. The relationship is quite positive, and we take advantage of using the IOMED technology. Thank you. Gabriel, I give the floor to Gabriel because we will start the questions, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gerardo. It was really nice to learn how you use the data space at your hospital, and thank you also much for the introduction to the EHDS. It was really nice. So right now, for all of you that are connected at the bottom, you can upvote or you can ask your own questions. So for this, I will be just reviewing the questions and providing some answers to those. So the questions with the most upvotes right now is a question that is asking who owns the data in this model. So the good thing about the data space as it is envisioned by us is that the data is still owned by the hospital and is still hosted by the hospital, and in fact is just part of the infrastructure of the hospital. We at IOMED do not envision to do any transfer of ownership of the data at all, but rather only to provide the technology for the hospitals to be able to have their data in a faster and easier way to understand, and then generating the technology so that the mediation process, it becomes faster. So we are much more focused on only providing the technology and helping the different stakeholders in the process to be able to perform their use cases in a much faster way, but this is just only the technology. The data is still owned by the hospital, and it's protected by the hospital themselves. I don't know, Gerardo, if
yeah. I can add several things. The database of the OMOP database is located in our data center, and also we have not only the database that we can access freely with a Pentaho or even SQL software. Also, we have an instance of Atlas in our premises, and then we can define the cohorts and making any search that we want. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Gerardo, for that. So we have another question where it's asking on how do we envision that the local data is clean and structured because of the reality of that real world data. It might not be the easiest to harmonize to the OMOP CDN, and that such preparation is very resource intensive. So in that case, so what we do or our experience so far with the data holders has been that from IOMED, what we are doing is providing the support of making sure that all the process is as easy as possible for the hospital. So here what we do is we have a lot of tooling that we have developed to be able to locate all the data sources that we need. We have generated the process to make sure that we go through the quality assurance to make sure that we are getting all those different data sources and performing the ETL into the data space. Without having to be very interactive with the hospital and their daily operations. So here the work with Gerardo and his team has been much more about being able to have a secure environment inside the hospital where we can help them to locate the data sources and then extract it and transform it into the OMOP in a recurrent way using the tooling that we have provided to them to be able to perform that. Gerardo, is there something else that you want to add about the ETL process?
Well, it's more or less is what you said, is working for ATL design, and then together, and then also there are two different approaches. One of them is working for a daily or a schedule ATLs just to send information, or make a specific ATL for a project when the ethical committee approve the study. There's two different approaches. Just a specific data for one project, or a continuous sending of data mainly for episodes and proceeds and general information that can be used in different studies.
So thank you, Gerardo, for that. So we have another very interesting question about the anonymization of the data. About the anonymization and about the data itself. So the approach here is a two-step approach. All the data in the OMOP CDM is pseudo-anonymized, meaning that by the hospital, it can be at some point re-identified if needed. Here, what we do is we have an approach into whatever data gets into the OMOP CDM, all the personal identifiable data is removed by default, and that all the data is not stored in the OMOP by itself, but the IDs can be re-identified if needed by the hospital. That said, for the use cases, meaning for the data that arrives to the data user, there are further processes that what they do is they anonymize the data, and at that end, all the anonymization processes, they break the traceability of the identifiable patients, making the data anonymized by itself, and that's the data that is delivered to the data users, making sure that all the data is anonymized by default. In this case, yes, please, Mats.
Yeah. So, Stefan, this is an interesting question, and I think this is a standard answer. But for the future, it's quite interesting from a pharmaceutical industry view, or any institution who would like to follow patients prospectively without intervention. Prospective support arm is such a concept that could follow patients in a completely anonymized way with tokenization. It demands some extra technological things, but it's interesting. It's an interesting use case for the future, Gabriel. So just a comment.
Thank you very much, Mats, for the comment. So we have a couple of minutes more, so we will answer a couple more questions. So we have a question coming from about the EHDS regulation and the data space mediators figure. So here it's referring into that the requests for use of the data will be managed through central platforms or through health data access bodies. That is how it is envisioned on the EHDS, and it makes all the sense. And that's why what we are trying now to do is that we are building the technology so that once these health data access bodies and that these kind of entities are recognized and have been set up in the different countries, then they can start using the technology and the platform by themselves to be able to manage these kind of processes. The idea here is that because there is already an existing and a reality to be able to execute this kind of mediation processes, what are we doing right now is generating the processes and the technology to be able to support those processes, so that once the big bodies from the governmental side are already set up and ready to be generating, we already will have enough of experience so that we can provide the technology to these different bodies. So right now what we are trying to do is using this envisioned way of working by the EHDS to make sure that we generate the processes and the way of working, so that later on it can be used by this kind of big bodies at a larger scale. So hopefully those processes will not take too long to be generating those access bodies, but we are not expecting those to appear from one day to another one, and probably will take a lot of time because many different countries will probably regulate them in very different ways and from very different sides of the governmental, from locals to more central ones. So we will see here probably various interpretations of how the EHDS can be implemented. This, of course, is more than right. What we are trying to do is just like build the technology so that we are ready, that when these bodies appear, we have everything in place to be able to deliver the technology that supports this kind of processes. I don't know if Mats, do you want to add something about these governmental structures?
The only thing I think could be interesting is the cycle time. The government structure, sort of the engagement process within hospitals, so from PI, data availability, feasibility, and the ethical. Those are rigorous and important steps. What I think is important as well, by means of its functionality, is what is the cycle time from a request to a feedback or answer. That will be interesting. Gabriel or Gerardo, any comments on that? So the cycle time. Of course, I know it depends on the research question, right? But in average, I think that could be of interest.
Yeah, right now a mediation process takes between 6 months to a year on our experience. So these processes are not fast. And even like establishing the processes in each of the data holders, just as Gerardo explained, is a process that it takes time, because there is a lot of internal training to provide, not only on the technical side, on getting set up all the technology and the platform ready, but also into training the different stakeholders in the hospital, as Gerardo mentioned, the ethical committees, teams, also for the contracting part of these mediations. So it is a process that it takes quite a long time. So yeah, I think that those cycles, what we are aiming at the end with the EHDS is to reduce them as much as we can. So I think that this is a huge step forward for sure. But we need to make sure that we can still refine those to try to reduce the time to data. No? That I think is one of the biggest worries always about any of the data users that needs to access data, is that there is this kind of urgency behind of the use of the data to be able to make better decision making. We can see this coming from the European Medicines Agency themselves. So the European Medicine Agency has built on top of this Eden network their own institution called Darwin EU, where what they are doing is this mediation and study figure, both at the same time, with a lot of data holders, where what they are doing is executing their studies on top of this federated network of hospitals that have the OMOP-CDM. And what we are seeing is that the times, even if they are getting faster, they are still quite long. So hopefully, as these processes become more general, and that the hospitals and the data users are more trained to them, are gonna get faster, hopefully.
Just to
Gerardo?
comment, Gabriel, on that. From a pharmaceutical industry perspective, I think one thing is clear: it takes time, but on the other hand, it allows the availability to share data that is completely unique. So for a pharmaceutical industry, we will be able to explore and analyze a data set that would be absolutely impossible to reach previously, which provide impact for study design, hypothesis generation, and of course, fine-tuning the protocol. And furthermore, could also be a very important step for enhancing clinical trial recruitment.
Indeed. Gerardo, do you want to add something? You are muted. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, the time that you said before, around 9 months. What I saw is that all the process, since a new project is informed to us till the committee, with all the checklist and all the study of viability, not less than 4 months.
Yeah.
Till the presentation of the study to the ethical committee, and then in the ethical committee can depend if it have to change something, or it has some modification just to get the viability. It can more than 4 months in prior the study is begun.
Yeah, and hopefully as long as we are training and understanding better these processes and generating the platform that supports it, hopefully those will get faster with time, because it will be easier to understand all the processes behind. So we have 3 minutes left. So we will answer one last question. So the last upvoted question. So in this case is a question regarding the OMOP-CDM. So it says that we have mentioned the OMOP-CDL several times as the target data model for the EHDS, and asks if this is a vision or if this is something that it's already materialized as part of the EHDS. Yeah, this is something that is not written on the EHDS as the solution to be, and I don't think that we will see the European health data space referring to a single protocol or a standard on how to manage data, probably because we will see an evolution of these protocols in the future at the end, and standards in the future. The OMOP-CDM is a standard that is the one that it was chosen for the Eden Foundation to try to get the OMOP-CDM on more than 200 hospitals all around Europe, and is the same standard that the European Medicines Agency is using for being able to perform their own research. But by far, this is not the first try. And I think that maybe, Mats, you can share with us previous experiences like I2B2 and other initiatives where this kind of vision of trying to have a standard has been there, but the standards at the end, they are just evolving with time.
Absolutely. And I think so. Standards and interoperability is extremely important. It's notoriously difficult to do things across institution, and not mentioning interregional, and not to mention between countries. So I think that IOMED's strategy, including European Health Data Space selection of leveraging on the great improvements of OMOP. And there are, of course, other interoperability vehicles like Smart on Fire. But I think this is the right way to go, and I think this is very promising. One thing, what I would like to say, two things. I think that IOMED's approach of the data mediation is actually allowing a much more collaboration with healthcare professionals and principal investigational experts compared to previous federated EHR platforms, which is less in a dialogue with the hospital. And I think that's really, that's why I think this is tuning in with the vision of a European health data space. And finally, I think there is a great potential of cutting the cycle time in this model with the appropriate training, skill sets, understanding, and so on and so forth. And I think, Gerardo, you already sort of said that you are now on the 4-month scale. There's no things, I mean, there are all opportunities to cut that to a minimum. Of course, with the sufficient time needed. So I think this is really promising, and it's interesting to see how this is going to grow as a pan-European network of using health data in a secure way.
Thank you, Mats, and thank you, Gerardo. We are out of time, so I wanted to again thank you both for joining us today and to share your experience and your knowledge on the topic. Thank you, everyone that connected and that joined remotely today. For those questions that remain unanswered, we will try to answer them maybe on a follow-up. But thank you very much today for joining, and see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.